Today I got the chance to sit down and talk to Mattias Horseman. I got to know Mattias when he was working in his Hendrick's role. He used to be one of the main brand ambassadors for Hendrick's Gin, and now he is doing something super cool. He's got a venture called Finding Magik. It definitely does sound like a magical venture, so I'll let him tell you a little bit more about that. But yeah, without much further ado, this is Serves You Right, and we're talking to Mattias Horseman. Let's do it.
And then I guess, like, to start with, I always just like to kind of take a breath with you as the host and just kind of say, like, thanks for having me on. And like, I really appreciate this syncing even from a distance. It's so nice to be in like the present moment.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, I love that so much. We might just begin here. But yeah. So Mattias, thank you for taking a moment out of your day to just sit down and talk with me. So that's awesome.
It's really great to see you again.
I know. I was trying to think. I think when we last saw each other was probably in Arizona Cocktail Week, and so that's going to be like 2018, maybe even before.
Yeah, at least 2018, probably, if not 17.
What's it feel like to not be at Tales of the Cocktail? Which is right now, yeah.
I know it's right now. I was thinking about it the other day because all the memories are popping up on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and it's beautiful to see that because life isn't a circle or a loop or something like that. It's more of a spiral, and I think more of us as we move through, we always are moving in these different directions, and we're always maybe experiencing similar things, yet with a different perspective because of the experiences that we've had. And Tales is something where I treasured my times at Tales, for so many years, every July, heading down and being there with everybody in the heat. And the last
heat.
couple of
Yes.
years.
Yeah.
But it's funny, there's always a toast I used to give, always. And it was always, it's not the weather that keeps us warm, it's those that you hold close to you. And the last year and a half to the last couple of years of my life have really shown me, I think, a truer sense of what that actually means than I ever really understood before when I used to give that toast. It's like the chance to get together in New Orleans is beautiful for the industry because it's people from all over the world coming to this one place, right, to experience each other's magic. And I think what's fascinating is I've been able to experience that in so many different ways over the last year and a half, which has shifted my perspective on the way that I used to experience hospitality. And that idea of welcoming people into a space, or even just around a bar, is this beautiful moment where people's light gets to converge in a single moment. And for just that brief time, you get to see somebody else, you get to witness them in their present state, and to be able to move with that energy for whatever time you're present with them. And I think Tales is such an incredible place for that because you get to cross paths with so many stars that are out there. And at the end of the week, when Tales finishes, there's this moment where you leave the city, and while in the moment it may feel like, God, I'm tired, I feel so drained or so alive on two ends of the spectrum, and you leave this place, if you zoom out, I genuinely see it like a firework display, just poof, back out into the world with all of these lights who came to visit one place that have then shared in each other's energy for that week, going back out to their homes to then be able to carry some of that magic back to their locations around the world. And I think if you think about the magic and the beauty of what Tales is, it's that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess
like that.
I do miss it. I do miss it in certain ways, but also to be able to be on the outside and witness that firework display happening down there, that's also beautiful too.
Yeah. You don't always have to be at the center of the firework display. For sure.
Sometimes it's terrifying.
Yeah. Now, you said a word so many times in that last moment that you really hit on what I was going to ask, finding magic. So what's going on? I gave you a phone call about a week ago when we were setting this up, and you had, I think, one of the most interesting recounted stories, more info in one phone call than I expected from any human being. I think you started off in South America and ended me at the Himalayas, and everywhere in between. So, like, what have you got going on right now?
Do you know, it's so funny. So about a year and a half ago, I left Hendrix on February
Mhm.
29th, actually. I think it was the perfect day for a Hendrix ambassador to leave, being a leap year.
Makes sense.
And
Yeah.
it's been a really interesting journey because I left to go and start what I was thinking was going to be this creative marketing agency, right?
Mhm.
Called Finding Magic, because I had this idea. I was like, I want to go and find and show the magic in the people that I love in the world, right? And so I just had this idea, and I'd been part of this beautiful industry and this beautiful framework that was built around, William Grant and Sons, and the marketing teams there were incredible, and it gifted me the most amazing experiences in my entire life. And in that structure of the industrial side of hospitality there, that comes from the marketing side of the alcohol companies, I got to witness a lot of the ways in which money was just kind of spent and
Mhm.
transferred between agencies and all these different things. And there's something just didn't quite sit right with me when it came to some of the mechanics of how the industry was working. So I thought, well, how could I do this in sort of a different way? Because it just seemed like there was more of a heart-centered approach rather than this like funneled system that could be implemented. And so I kind of left with this idea. And along the way, it has changed so many beautiful iterations as I've changed. But Finding Magic went from just being this creative marketing agency that I had a dream of to being what we're calling a creative life agency.
Mhm.
Because the truth is, I realize now that marketing is not just about selling things. At least I don't believe that the next iteration of what marketing can be should be about that. It's about a way of being to me. And the first thing that I did after I left Hendrix was I went and I gave a speech at the Hyatt Lifestyle Hotel Summit that was happening with a dear friend of mine, Miranda Breedlove, who's the director of beverage. And she invited me down, and I gave a talk called The Spirit of Hospitality.
Mhm.
And the first layer of that talk was all about internal hospitality. So I truly believe that there's this quantum model of hospitality that surrounds every single person and just throughout the world that I find so beautiful. The first layer is that internal hospitality side of things. It means how can you be hospitable to yourself? Because if you can be hospitable to yourself, then it like ripples out to those around you, which is that middle layer of the meso layer of hospitality, is your connections with those around you. And then finally, you have this macro layer of hospitality, which is the sort of ripple effect outside of your direct contact. And along the journey, I didn't realize it, but the moment I kind of finished that speech, I got sucked into that first layer, and I
Mm.
went deep into internal hospitality. And along the journey, I went through the process of finding magic. But at the end of the day, even though we know that magic exists all around us, I think it's just a reflection of the magic that's inside. And every single person in the world has this beautiful light that makes them them in their unique way. And some lights will attract you towards them, some will repel you away.
Mm.
And I just went on this process of finding magic in myself for the last year and a half. And I took a break completely from social media and all those things. And along the way, I just happened to meet some of the most incredible people around the world and go on these adventures, which I never even intended to necessarily do. But when you listen to the wind, sometimes it can take you to the most amazing places.
Yeah, yeah. No, and one of my favorite quotes that you have on your website, it's magic is something you remember you are, not something you learn how to do. And I think you're kind of speaking to that. It's in you, you just have to
Yeah.
step out of the way.
Truly. And, I
Yeah.
think we come along with so many times, like in the hospitality industry, especially, like it's such a beautiful place because innately it's an energetic industry, right? Like bartenders, servers, hosts, anybody who owns a restaurant, they're there to hold space for people to be able to feel safe, to be able to bring their fullness of themselves into these moments, to relax from whatever pressures might be existing in the outside world, to celebrate, to commiserate, to be with each other in a beautiful third space and a safe space. And unfortunately, one of the things that is so prevalent in this world is not being allowed to feel your true essence and who you are, because of the limitations and these slow little buildups of societal expectations that have created such prisons for being, when
Mm-hmm.
actually who we are just prisms of light, and we exist in this beautiful full spectrum of stuff. And it's so beautiful to witness somebody in their full light. And I feel like my definition for hospitality has totally shifted over the
Mm-hmm.
last few years of these journeys, and really understanding the power that it means to be able to hold space for people in their truth.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you have a working definition of hospitality that you go off of, or I know
I
that's.
wouldn't say a working definition, I would say an evolving definition, because I feel like when we find these things that define us, we often confine ourselves to that understanding. And
Mhm.
so if we're able to be able to set our own foundation and sort of have these sacred agreements with ourselves in this way. So hospitality for me is that idea that I can welcome somebody into a space and just witness them in their entirety without putting any of my expectations to be a limitation on them.
Hmm.
And, I feel like there's a lot of beauty that comes with somebody in their truth, because when somebody stands in their truth and their full light, you're able to then reflect on that and see where you stand and how it makes you feel.
Mhm.
Because I may love something and you may not love that, but by me loving it, you understand that it's not for you. And
Yeah.
what a beautiful way that is to align as just a way of being.
Yeah. No, and that really does touch to what you were saying. It's, you know, that light will pull you towards sometimes, and sometimes it will push away, but it just is.
Do you know, it's
Yeah.
funny. I've been writing so much recently about this. Just, I don't know, this phrase just keeps coming to me, and I keep writing about it in different forms. But it's about, I feel like life is like dancing through a forest of magnets. It's like we have this beautiful magnetic field around us of what we love, of what we don't like, of our boundaries, of the things that we desire, the trajectory that we're heading in. And so as we're heading towards these things, we move amongst these fields that can either empower us or they can shift our direction to somewhere else.
Hmm.
And I guess ultimate hospitality is to be able to help somebody just clear the way for themselves to be able to find the path towards what it is that they're feeling they desire. And I think for me, that act of not viewing things as positive or negative in the sense of good or bad, but just realizing that things are pushing and pulling you away energetically from that space is so impactful.
Hmm.
And we can go back in our lives and re-examine certain aspects, I think, sometimes, to be able to take away some of that emotional depth, the emotional charge that can be placed on certain experiences that we have. And I actually would be like using the example of me leaving Hendrix. It's a very positive experience in my book in a lot of ways. And there was also a lot of negative things that were kind of on the back end of that I, never really shared or anything. But
Hmm.
the fact that I'm able to go back into my life and to be able to realize that without that experience that I had, and being able to see behind the veils that I looked behind in the corporate world, I was able to now see it as this incredible experience that guided me to exactly where I needed to be. And
Hmm.
so then all of a sudden, the people that I thought were the worst, or the bosses who I never really resonated with, I'm like, wow, they became my greatest teacher. And so now I'm actually filled with so much gratitude for those people in their exact fullness and in their entire light, because without them I would not be where I am today.
Hmm.
And that, I think, is just, it's one of the most incredible things about our minds, is we're able to go do this kind of
Yeah.
work.
That's a powerful kind of alchemy, The things that
It is.
once held me back and were the problems are my teachers and my guides now.
Yeah.
I
And
I
I
am.
mean, alchemy
Oh,
is such a great word there.
no,
That's a
thanks.
beautiful word. The transmutation of elements, and to move things from one state to another. And
Mhm.
all we do as mixologists is really, mix things up. So why not
From one
mix
state to
emotions?
another. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I am wondering because I think you have a really open and accepting sort of view of what I'm feeling from you, and I'm trying to think. Do you feel like you always had that? Do you feel like that's something you gained just traveling so much? Because I know you traveled a lot lately, and I can only imagine you've traveled a ton as a Hendrix ambassador. So, where does that come
Yeah.
from? Yeah.
It was the greatest gift getting to travel with that. Like, I'm eternally grateful. If anybody ever in the industry has like a dream to be an ambassador or to travel the world, like, I highly, highly recommend looking at that kind of role. It's beautiful. Just don't get lost in it.
Mhm.
And I think for me, truthfully, no, I didn't. I think I've always had elements of it. Like since I was a kid, definitely for sure. But the truth is, I think, as with so many things in life, my truth is that it came with uh, really going down the paths of heartbreak and being
Mhm.
torn open and unleashing an entire world within my world that I didn't even know existed. And in that world that I had to explore for many years, that's where I started to understand the deeper realms and the deeper levels that were beneath the surface that I had been playing in.
Mhm. We always hope that it's the nice, positive, easy things, but those are never the lessons that
Yeah.
we need.
It
Yeah.
always seems to be that way, doesn't it? But I
Mhm.
suppose, again, it's like you get put into these fields to go and explore. And I guess I'm lucky because I preached the words of curiosity so much when I was with Hendrix, like through and through. And I don't ever actually, I understood a surface level definition of what that was,
Mhm.
but it wasn't until I was in the depths of my soul and in spaces that took a lot of energy to navigate, and to be curious about the dark. That was probably the moments where I started to understand what the true definition of curiosity is to me,
Mhm.
because around the corner in the dark can lie the scariest things. And to walk the garden of my mind at midnight with a broken heart was probably one of the scariest places I've ever been. And around every corner, I had no idea what was going to be there. And I went through this process of learning to love it, and learning that around those corners, actually, I was finding beauty, and I
Mhm.
was finding these things that needed to be nourished and nurtured. And I got to kind of explore what actually nurturing myself was like, which I hadn't really necessarily done before, because I'd entered a shadow of a lot of different archetypes in my life throughout my journey.
Mhm.
And in those moments, that's kind of, I guess, where I started to really uncover the beauty of the shadow and the strength that's possible to find in there. And yeah, that was
Mhm.
yeah, the last I would say 5 years in my life have been transformative, to say
Mhm.
the least.
Yeah. So, do you mind? You don't have to go through the entirety of it, but just some of what happened post Hendrix, because you told me some of your journey on the phone, and it's just such a inspiring journey all through the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So so I gave the talk with Miranda at Hyatt for the
yeah.
Spirit of Hospitality, and from there I got kind of beautifully, as I mentioned before, got sucked into the first layer of what hospitality meant to myself, for me inside, to my own emotions, to my body, to my mind. And the first story that I wanted to tell as part of this new kind of creative agency that I was kind of thinking about was a dear friend of mine. His name is Russ Pappas, and he's one of the most incredible body workers that I've ever met. He's like does this shamanic body work. He's a masseuse, and he's a light in this world. And he has guided me through some of the most beautiful situations.
Mhm.
So he leads these retreats down to Peru, to the jungle, up in Iquitos in the north of the country. And he's been building this healing center with some shamans there. And he's been studying with this family for the last nearly decade. And he had kind of been struggling with some of the aspects of the business and saying like, oh, people just don't want to like sign on fully sometimes to the experience, because it's obviously a very big experience to go on, so it can be a little kind of intimidating. And so I thought, well, why not, I'll just go and tell the story so more people can see how beautiful it is. And I went down, I said, I don't know what this is going to look like. I have no idea, when I'm going to get you the content or the footage or anything like that. I said, I'm just coming down with a camera, a notebook, and a pencil. And so I was like, what a great way to start a marketing agency, is just with a few things and a backpack. And so I went down, and we ended up going to Iquitos and then going into the jungle from there and sitting with these shamans in ceremony, which was just incredible to witness their magic and to hear the lineage and to walk through the deep jungle and to just witness them finding these plants and cutting them open and having the sangre de drago, the blood of the tree, drip down and like collected in a bottle for then just to be given out and then like, take this, put it on the mosquito bite, so heal it. I still have some today that I use for pretty much everything.
Oh man, I
And
need to get some up here. Yeah.
yeah, right. And so I went down there, and after I came out from that ceremony, I realized I'd left a lot of things behind that I needed to process a lot of stuff. And so I went from there and I started to integrate back in Los Angeles. And I got back here, I literally unpacked my suitcase, and I'm pretty sure I repacked it the next day. And I literally booked a ticket to Bali on the way to the airport. And then I booked my accommodation while I was sitting on the runway. And then when I got to Bali, I spent a few weeks there. And the first morning when I got out of the villa that I was staying in, I had my backpack, a laptop, and like a change of clothes. And I literally got to the end of the alleyway, and I had this decision to make. I literally looked left and right. And that, I realized at that moment, was the biggest decision that I had in my life. And I literally was like, okay. And so I turned left, I turned right, and I followed it right, because that's the way that my heart told me to go. And later that day, I ended up finding this yoga class by this wonderful teacher, Carlos Romero. And I ended up actually going down and doing a workshop with him for a few days in the south of Bali. Um, and I actually just spent a month and a half with him in Bali earlier this year doing another teacher training. So it's funny how sometimes those seemingly small or big moments, just as like a turning of left or right, can actually guide you on such a path that can lead you through years to come.
Yeah.
And yeah, from Bali, then I went to northern Thailand, and I spent about a month and a half studying yoga and philosophy at the foothills of the Himalayas, and the amazing little venue called the Garden of Mindfulness, or Suan Sati, as it's called up there. Living in the rice fields and just getting to really connect with my body and connect with my mind, and to understand some of the philosophical approaches that have been passed down from lineage to lineage, with some incredible teachers. And I think it was there that I really started to see this idea of like, my whole life I've been spent behind a bar with people from all walks of life coming up to the bar and being in these completely different worlds. But right next to each other, you'd have somebody who literally from the other side of the world, somebody from this side, somebody who's this type of job, somebody who's this type of job. And each of them have built their lives upon the frameworks that they've understood and that they were raised through, whether it's religions, beliefs, science, education, all these different things, the knowledge that we're passed. And I started to look at all of these ancient practices and my studies of science. I have a degree in psychology, so I kind of have that type of mindset and background. And so I'm looking at all of these different things, and I'm like seeing this beautiful pattern emerge where they're almost weaving together in this most incredible way. And I was like, wow, like it's so beautiful to see what can happen when we actually mix these frameworks together, just like ingredients in drink. They all have their unique origins, but when you mix them together, my gosh, the flavors are beautiful. And so, yeah, after studying there for a month and a half, I came back to the States. And one of the key moments there was I was under a mosquito net, and I called my best friend Shannon, and I said, do you want to do Finding Magic with me? And she was like, yes. So when I got back to the States, we started kind of like working together and merging our frameworks, right? Because Shannon had this incredible couple concepts. She's based in Phoenix, Arizona, but now we split time between there and here in Santa Monica. And so we started merging these kind of frameworks together, and it was like two rivers meeting, just combining all of these beautiful different origins and ideas. And then we went traveling again. So we went to the UK, and I took her on a journey to where I had first really experienced a pivot point in my journey over the last few years at a yoga festival there called Verve. And it was just, oh, it was so amazing to be back and to go to the most magical places in the UK and spend some time.
Mm.
And then, there was a couple more trips there. We ended up actually in Egypt, studying sort of the ancient practices of the Egyptians, and that where the beautiful, cradle of civilization is, and sort of seeing how incredible the buildup of that history was. We sailed down the Nile from Luxor to Aswan and just had the most incredible journey there. And I think feeling the energy of these ancient temples is so beautifully reminiscent of like when you go into this like a great bar almost these days. It's like you get to go in and you feel the magic of the people who've put in so much energy and love into a space. It's kind of the same thing, but just on a couple thousand years history timeline instead of right now.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
you could feel that intentionality in the bar, and that was something
yeah.
someone planned for years. And I mean,
Hmm.
I haven't had the pleasure of going to Egypt, but I can only imagine.
It's funny how I think so many things in our life can become portals, right? Like we watch movies and we get transported into a whole nother world that was this director's frequency,
Mhm.
right? Like a director had an idea and they put it onto the screen. And when they put it onto the screen, you get beautifully sucked into this world. The same could be said about painting. An artist expresses their true feelings as they're like throwing paint onto the canvas or drawing a picture or writing words, as is my favorite medium currently.
Mhm.
And to be able to write a piece that conveys the true essence of your heart, God, it's just, it can be so powerful. And in the same way, when somebody creates a drink or when somebody creates a place or a space, all of a sudden it just becomes this beautiful portal into somebody else's world. And I think that's where I always looked for bartenders who were creating in that way.
Mhm.
And I love I love a lot of the branded competitions and the things that happen out there to support the industry. I do. And I also love and respect the people who truly create from their heart first and foremost. And I think there's just such a beauty in witnessing a true creation that comes from somebody loving a moment. And
Mhm.
that's why I think those branded excursions that we always used to do on the advocacy side was so important, because you're not just bringing people to talk about the brand, you're bringing them on an experience. And I was just lucky enough to be part of some amazing experiences with Hendrix over the years, which I
Yeah.
loved.
I would even
Yeah.
go as far to say known for kind of some of the more interesting experiences.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's the real testament to the amalgamation of the team
yeah.
that was there. Like, I mean, Charlotte Voisey coming over and starting that sort of like
Mhm.
ethos within the brand ambassador community at William Grant. Really, there's for a long time, they were the epitome of what I think brand ambassadors can be in this world. Because it was just such an amazing group of people. And still, there are some absolutely fantastic people there. Some of my favorites in the world.
Yeah.
And yeah, and when you see I almost look at it kind of like a color palette, like a painting. When you have like all these different colors on the palette, you're able to then mix in certain ways to be able to create the masterpiece. And I think when I look back at my time at William Grant, like all of the colors that were on that palette were just so beautiful. And specifically getting to work with Mark Stoddard, Eric Anderson, and Vance Henderson was like it was just a really beautiful experience for so many years. It was
Yeah.
great.
You know, speaking of like a palette to create something, I actually shared your story with my brother when I got down when he was in his competition, but I was going to ask,
Nice.
would you share with us how you picked the flavor combinations in your first competition, because I thought that was so brilliant. That's it definitely. I'll share
Yeah.
my first competition, which is a horror story later, but
No, I
yeah.
want to hear that one. That's
Oh
great.
yeah.
It's funny. I was in the UK. I was bartending. I've been bartending in a tiki bar for a long time, and I ended up working at this beautiful place that ended up it was underneath a beautiful Michelin star chef, Simon Radley, and I remember this competition came up, and I was kind of terrified. So I walked down the soap aisle in the supermarket, and I looked at all the different flavor combinations, and I was like, oh my god, lemon verbena, all right, bergamot, that's cool, all right, like, oh, let's do this. And so then, I went back to the drawing board, and I was like, all right, let's use
Mhm.
some of this. I think I had some sherry, some apple, some lemon, some beautiful other like little tidbits of flavors in there. And yeah, it's funny where inspiration can strike from. You never
Mhm.
know. Yeah.
Oh, the new Dove ambassador. Yes.
Mixing
uh,
soap flavors.
yeah.
Yeah,
No.
but I mean, I think no, go on, please.
Please, you. Mine's a silly story. So.
I was just going to say that I think going back to that where inspiration can strike. It is so funny. Like last year, actually, when we were back in the States after we got back from the UK, I'd met this wonderful human being just in a garden center one night late while we were playing music, and a quick conversation, literally no more than I would say 10 minutes, led to probably one of the most beautiful friendships I have in my life right now.
Mm.
And I actually ended up traveling to Zimbabwe after we were in Egypt via a couple of weeks in Spain, and then ended up trying to tell his story. And in telling his story of going back to Zimbabwe and being a musician and playing his first concert since before COVID, and that he was visiting back home, I fell back in love with photojournalism and the idea of just really trying to capture moments. And that, I think, was a beautiful point of inspiration where you find something in life, just a moment, and you're able to weave that back in throughout the experiences to kind of guide you on your way. And I would say that the same was true with me when I started to get through my career as a bartender. And in the hospitality industry, I would taste something somewhere so random. Like for me, I remember cherries. Like I had cherries on a drive one time, and it probably was one of the most beautiful flavor experiences of my life. And so since then, I always have had an affinity for making things made of cherry.
Mhm.
And it's like, I think that's where I always find that next layer of understanding of bartending and the love that comes in there is when you can weave in elements of your own life into these moments rather than just mixing on predetermined flavor combinations that I used to find in soap aisles.
Oh yeah.
And so then finding my own combinations became beautiful.
Yeah. No, I mean, when you really do follow those things that you're interested in, those things that really inspire you, those are when the cool drinks come around. Like I remember
Yeah.
one of my best drink creations came from me wondering if I could make a popcorn simple syrup. And I got obsessed with that idea. I thought that would be really cool to see if I could do it. And some really cool cocktails came out of that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I suppose you could take the same analogy and use it for life.
Mhm.
That's the energy we were talking about before. When you find something that interests you, something that sparks that passion, you follow it. And you follow that path until it goes no further, or you're putting energy into it. And eventually you might find that the energy that you're putting into that popcorn kernel pops and becomes something beautiful.
Mhm.
And I think we do have the same propensity in our lives to be able to follow our passions into our dreams eventually and kind of making them happen.
Yeah. Before I forget to tell the story, I've got to tell you the first competition story, or people will be listening and
Please.
shouting into their microphones. Yeah. So it was a Don Q competition, rum. I went with a plantain infusion. I forget the exact ingredients, but I remember I got the drink exactly where I wanted. And then I got the like banana uh, garnish exactly the way I wanted it to taste. But I was new and I never thought to, because I was caramelizing the banana, I never thought to see what it would look like when I put it on the glass. I just made sure the tastes were perfect. I was all excited, first time. And, you're nervous in a competition. You don't know to expect that. I make the drinks, I caramelize this banana, I put it on, And if you've caramelized a banana and caramelized it too much, it turns into this sludgy mess. And so I look at this drink and it's just runny banana going into a drink that does not look appealing at all. And I mean, you're there and that's it. And so I gotta take this drink to the judges with a smile on my face. And I got last place, dead last. And like, I drink did taste good, but I totally deserved last place there. So I told my story and yours because I think you won to my brother. So I said it can go well, it could go poorly. You come back
Mm.
from it though. So
Yeah, totally. And you were still in the competition, so
I
that's
did
great.
I didn't give up. No, definitely saw
Yeah.
it through. Um,
Uh,
so
well, did you ever go back and perfect the cocktail?
uh, I did serve the drink without the garnish for a while in the bar. Yeah. So it
Mhm.
just yeah, I didn't think through that garnish, and I knew it was a valuable lesson to do things start to finish as a test run before you do it any like ever again, because
Yeah.
nerves are the great killers, and you don't think about when you're on the spot. Yeah, I learned a lot of lessons, let's say that. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, that's so
um
great.
Finding magic, what so how could someone support your project? Where could someone find you or hire you? What I see, like on the website, there's a bunch of different things. I saw the weekly tune up. I saw some stained glass. What are you all known for?
Yeah, so what we've been doing is collecting those stories of these practitioners around the world. And the truth is, the most beautiful part about this last year was the kind of the unfolding of ourselves as artists. And I think coming from a framework of this, the beautiful corporate structures that I was in, kind of actually it was really interesting to have to unlearn a lot of those things to be able to enter into a new space. And so becoming an artist is a process of removing a lot of those frameworks and understandings and limitations to just reveal what's inside.
Mm,
So we're selling our art projects to be able to then fund the journeys to go and find the people in the world that are truly making a difference in their communities and to tell their stories. So if people want to support us, they can go online, and we're just about to release an art project in the next couple of days,
oh,
which
cool.
I will save for that release. But I will say we're pre-selling those to be able to fund a very beautiful, immersive experience that we want to implement here in the US somewhere, and the first state of that tour. So we would love if people just could follow along on the socials on Finding Magic and me at the Bar Poet, and my best friend and business partner Shannon 108 Kindred Spirits. So I think there's these beautiful ways that people can follow along and engage. And if people really want to support us, the most honest way they can do it is to take a beautiful deep breath and to flow in a direction that makes them happy. I
Mm,
think that's ultimately our mission, is to help people just remember the magic that's inside them. And if we can live in the way that we are, just to try and bring that frequency back to the world a little bit. I'll share a story that just happened the other day. Actually, it was the 4th of July, and I was down watching the fireworks from pretty much right underneath them. And as we looked up, the marine layer came in so thick that you couldn't see the fireworks. It was literally
oh,
just
cool.
flashes of light, almost like a strobe light, right? And I kind of just looked at it in that moment, and I thought about the world currently and how there is so much noise going on in the world that sometimes it's this cloud that exists in front of these amazing lights that are happening. And I feel like that could be reflected into each of us, and how sometimes we have this cloud that exists around our mind of these pressures and these expectations and these things going on around us, that we don't allow our full light to shine. And I think in that way, the weekly tune up is part of my frequency adjustments.
Mhm.
And the goal of that is to be able to have people come and to be able to just breathe for an hour. So every week I'm opening up an hour on Sundays just to come and breathe, for anybody who wants to do it. And then part of that is leading into my frequency adjustments, where I take on clients to be able to help them walk through specific phases of their life.
Hmm.
If anybody needs it, from C-suite executives, all the way through to people just navigating starting a business. It's incredible, the power of presence, and to be able to tune through the static and to hear really what your heart is trying to say and to what your true soul is trying to sing can be life changing, and especially in such a noisy world. So I share that to just exemplify, I guess, where we're at and what we're trying to do, and to
Mhm.
just help tune through the static a little bit.
Yeah.
And my goal eventually is to be able to have this sort of global creative life agency, where we're actually helping businesses, rather than just with their marketing externally, to help them align internally
Mhm.
within their own system, so that whatever message, whatever product, whatever thing they're trying to create and share with the world comes from a place that is supportive of all of the community within inside that industry and organization. Because I think when an organization starts to become truly humanized and harmonic within their structure, it switches to this organism that actually helps those that exist within it to thrive, not just survive. And I have seen so many examples of organizations that just are there as this sort of extractive method. They help people to live, but they don't necessarily help them thrive.
Mhm.
So I have some projects that I'm working on with some incredible practitioners at relooking at what HR truly means, and instead of it being about human resources, it's more about human resonance and helping those that are within the systems to truly exist in the fullest that they can, rather than just protecting companies from litigation.
Yeah. Compliance.
Yeah.
No, I like that. I think it really nicely parallels kind of your journey of the external hospitality into that internal hospitality in your focus. Yeah, it's
Yeah, I think that I'm right at that point in that same model that I presented a year ago, from the internal to the meso to the macro level. Like I moved from the internal level from the last year, where I took a complete break from socials, to now coming back to being able to look at it in a beautifully different way. And now the goal for the next phase, however long, there's no rush,
Mhm.
is to just focus on helping people to try and exemplify that internal hospitality into their communities around them. And I think that hopefully eventually you'll see this ripple effect of the hospitality industry. Because I genuinely believe that the hospitality industry is probably the industry that I think could change the world, because you have all of these people from all different walks of life. And my friend Chris once, when we were talking, described it as this like land of misfit toys. And I think it's just such a beautiful thing that behind a bar, you can have somebody who has a PhD, who has a master's degree, who was a doctor, a lawyer,
Mhm.
who was a mechanic. You can have anybody in the world. You can have people who loved hospitality like me so much that they pursued it for their life career.
Mhm.
And when you have all of these people behind bars holding space for people in the world, where they come in from the outside and the pressures of life, to be able to celebrate, to commiserate, to be with somebody else and be witnessed in their truth. If you have all of those people illuminating life into these people, and to be able to hold space for their light to shine as brightly as it can, I truly believe that the hospitality industry can change the world. And if we could view it more in that way, I feel like owners, operators become these hubs for literal charging stations in the world for happiness. And we're changing that right now, because the world's relationship with alcohol is shifting,
Mhm.
and people are starting to realize that the definitions of hospitality doesn't just fall into bars and restaurants, but it falls into creating these unique third spaces that are available and applicable to a vast degree of people. And I think we're in this beautiful shift, and it's an honor to be in this part of time right now, watching that happen and being a part of it.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't imagine a better champion for that sort of hospitality than honestly you. So, thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. I really appreciate that. Thanks. Well, it's because I've
So,
met amazing people along the way that
mhm.
have guided me into this path. So thank you for being part of that journey and for being right now.
Yeah. I do have a question for my sake because I always struggle with this. The weekly
Mm.
tune-up. There's a suggested donation but left blank. Is there like an average or like what do people normally do? Because I'm off some Sundays. I was thinking about joining, but I always get
Yeah.
I'm always like, man, I don't know.
Do you know what's funny? So with that, I have this unique view on money, I guess, and
Yeah.
I truly believe that money is just a physical manifestation of energy,
Hmm.
right? It's just the system that we've been taught to attribute to our value. So when people want to engage with it, the reason why I say a suggested donation, and there's actually a few options I believe in there of like, if you want to buy me a cup of tea, you can buy me a cup of tea at like $7. I live in Los Angeles; it's expensive here.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's like,
Well,
a cup of tea.
I saw the cup of tea, but I didn't look for prices on it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so there was that. I also, there's a couple others on there. Like I have one that you can pay it forward and buy somebody else a cup of tea, and so then every week I will actually be going to a cafe and buying people tea with whatever money people buy that with. So it's kind of literally paying it forward,
Hmm.
and then you can support our projects too if you want to, because again, energy exchange is key. Sometimes people want to show up and they, may not have the financial ability to, so there's always room to just come and breathe for sure.
Hmm.
um, but if you do have some energy to give right now, then you know that actually by passing that energy to somebody else who's giving you something in return, like holding space, you're then able to fill their tank and fill their cup with energy so that they can go and do the work they need to do.
Hmm.
And when I started to look at it more like that, I started to really be interested in the structures and value systems that are placed within the corporate side of things, because it's just fascinating how people engage with that. And the conversation around money is very difficult to have often because people aren't willing to truly be
Hmm.
open about their needs, wants, and desires. But the moment that I was able to truly have those conversations, I started to be able to help and invite people into their true value. And it's been wonderful to witness some of the people I've worked with navigate through understanding their true value and actually then charge accordingly and be able to live the life that they want to live, not just survive in a life that is below their potential and
Hmm.
threshold. So, yeah, so when I say suggested donation and there's the little example there, that would be what I mean by that. And it is something that I struggled with too, through very much, but thought very intently about. And even
Hmm.
still, with my current pricing models for my frequency adjustments, it's very much based on an energy exchange of this is what this means. And if you
Yeah.
give to this life, here is what I'm doing. This is what you're filling, like, and sometimes people actually even just offer to fill some of those cups because it would bring them joy to fill those cups. And so I feel like we're in this beautiful threshold of a new model from a financial system that I think might come out. We'll see. Who knows? The blockchain is trying to rewire the world in that
Yeah.
way.
I mean,
And
2025 is a very interesting time to be alive for sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, we'll save that one for a separate episode
Oh
because I
yeah.
think we could talk
I know
for hours
you're in
about money.
California,
But
you're in the thick of all the technology and all the fun. Yeah.
it's
So,
fascinating. But I,
yeah.
I remember a seminar, and I'll share this document with you too. I did a seminar years ago at BCB that was about talking about money.
Mhm.
And I did that, and I actually, that was kind of a bit of a nugget that got a seed that got planted in my life that led me to really being able to create my own framework around the discussions that I have with people and money. So maybe you'll find it useful, or anybody else will find it useful too. So I'll
Yeah,
share
I'd
some
love
of
that.
that with you too.
Awesome. Well, Mattias Horseman, thank you for taking a few moments out of your day. I really appreciate you.
Oh, thanks
Where
so
should
much.
people listening, where should they go to learn more about you, or where do you like people to follow you
If,
online?
if if you're on social media, please, the bar poet, please feel free to follow me there. Or you can follow Finding Magic, finding_magic on Instagram or on all of the different platforms. So you can go to findingmagic.com and it's got all of the links there. And it's magic with a K. All the other domain names were taken, and we figured, let's redefine magic. So
I just assumed that you chose the K.
yeah, no, I think it was meant to be. It's it's a beautiful way, and I just am really appreciative of this moment in time to be. I think that's what's important, and to share this moment with you, to be able to share the story, I think is really special. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it was an awesome way to spend an afternoon. So thank you. And those of you listening, if you didn't write that down, I'll have those all in the show notes, so you can just click on over and go check it out. Thank you again.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Appreciate you.
Thank you again for listening. That's the end of our show today. My name's Andrew. This is Serves You Right. If you haven't, please subscribe to the show. Everyone who subscribes helps the show grow and get cooler guests on, and it sure does mean a lot to me. We put out new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. We'll see you then. Thanks.